I'm Ella Hayes, 32 years old, and I'll never forget that Thanksgiving. The sound of 12 forks and knives hitting the hardwood floor all at once. The feeling of my blood turning ice cold while my face burned with humiliation. The complete silence echoing through my own dining room while my heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Thanksgiving 2024. Aunt Linda shot up from the head chair, the chair she'd always claimed as hers for the past 20 years. Face red with rage, trembling finger pointed straight at me. "This house isn't yours anymore, Ella. Get out, now." The smell of roasted turkey and cranberry sauce suddenly became suffocating. The crystal chandelier light, the one I just bought to replace the broken old one, reflected the stunned faces of 15 family members sitting around my dining table. The fire crackling in the fireplace seemed just as shocked by this performance. Snow was falling outside the Minneapolis windows, but nothing was colder than my family's stares. They waited for my reaction, waited for me to cry, waited for me to apologize, waited for me to bow my head like I always had. But I'd been waiting for this moment for 15 years, and none of them knew I was ready. To understand how Aunt Linda could stand up and scream in my face in my own house, you need to know about our childhood. Aunt Linda was my mother's younger sister. From birth, she was spoiled by my grandparents like their little princess. And me? I was the firstborn granddaughter, but never the favorite. I remember every Thanksgiving since I was 8. My chair was always forgotten. I had to sit on a folding chair in the corner while Aunt Linda sat at the head of the table, carving turkey like the lady of the house, even though this was my grandparents' home. "Ella, honey, you're still young. Let Aunt Linda sit here," was the classic line every holiday. The house at 1247 Maple Street, a Victorian 4-bedroom with the smell of old oak wood mixed with lavender from Grandma's sachets, was the center of every family memory. The creaking floorboards whenever someone crossed the living room threshold had become the soundtrack of my childhood. My grandparents died 3 years ago. Aunt Linda declared, "This house belongs to the whole family." But strangely, nobody wanted to pay the $2,800 monthly mortgage. I decided to buy it at market price, got a bank loan, completely legal. The painful memories kept piling up. Thanksgiving 2019. Aunt Linda gave my seat to my youngest cousin's new boyfriend, leaving my chair empty again. Christmas 2021. I brought gifts for everyone, but only got a half-hearted hug from Aunt Linda. The tea-light candles flickered on the dining table, but my family's looks toward me were as cold as Minnesota snow. 3 days before Thanksgiving 2024, my phone got a text from Aunt Linda. "Family needs to talk about the house situation. Some things need to change." The tone wasn't negotiation. It was announcement. I knew this talk wasn't about sharing utility costs. I decorated the house New England style. Warm white LED lights around the porch, maple leaf wreaths on the doors. The smell of cinnamon and cardamom from apple cider simmering on the stove filled the house. The sound of children playing outside mixed with the neighbors greeting each other. I set the dining table for 16 people, feeling confident for the first time that this is my house. 4:30 p.m. Aunt Linda arrived first. Brought nothing, just attitude. "Oh wow, this chandelier looks expensive. I bet the mortgage payments are pretty tight." "I hope you're not living beyond your means." She walked through my house like she was inspecting property, touching things with a judgmental expression. The microaggressions escalated quickly. Uncle Mike, Aunt Linda's husband. "This house is so big. Why not let some of the grandkids move in?" My youngest cousin, Jessica. "Ella, I heard owning such a big house alone is pretty stressful." The sound of door locks clicking open and shut as relatives arrived mixed with the golden Minnesota sunset streaming through the bay windows, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors. Everyone started questioning my real ownership. This house has always belonged to the whole family. Grandma wouldn't want to see the house divide the family. I felt like I was standing trial, not hosting a family dinner. The danger signals were clear. Aunt Linda exchanged the look with her husband. She started moving toward the head of the table, the power seat. When Aunt Linda tapped her spoon against her wine glass like she was preparing a big announcement, I knew the battle had begun. While everyone ate appetizers, I quietly opened my phone. I screenshotted the text messages from 2021 when I announced buying the house. Hey everyone, I'm buying Grandma's house. Anyone want to chip in? Seen by 12, replied by 0. Final call, closing next week. Seen by 15, replied by 0. Facebook screenshots. I opened Facebook, scrolled to my post from closing day. Finally got the keys to 1247 Maple Street. First Hayes family Thanksgiving in my home. 47 reactions, but not a single like from Aunt Linda or Uncle Mike. Comments only from friends and coworkers. So proud of you. Beautiful house. Voicemail collection. I opened a saved voicemail from 6 months ago. Aunt Linda's voice after 2 drinks. Ella, honey, we'll see who really ends up with that house. Family is family, sweetie. You could hear wine glasses clinking in the background. The static noise showed she'd called from her car. Ring doorbell evidence. My neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, had shared a ring clip with me. Video from October 15th. Aunt Linda standing outside my house at 2 p.m. when I was teaching. She tried the doorknob, peered into windows, talked on her phone. Yeah, I'm here now. Looks like she's not home. While preparing salad, I overheard Aunt Linda talking to Uncle Mike. After dinner, we'll have the family meeting. I brought the papers. What papers? Transfer of ownership documents. She can't handle this house alone. The smell of red wine was strong on her breath. Outside, snow started falling harder, creating a muffled sound backdrop. I quietly connected my Chromecast to the living room TV and uploaded all screenshots and voicemails to Google Drive. When I realized Aunt Linda wanted to force me to sign transfer ownership papers to divide the property among family, I knew this wasn't just dinner drama. This was a legal battle disguised as family bonding. When Aunt Linda announced, "We need to have a family meeting after dinner," I stood up. That sounds great, Aunt Linda, but we'll talk publicly, right here, no yelling. And since this is my house, we'll follow my rules. I suggested everyone move to the living room where the big TV was. Let me just set up the TV so everyone can see documents clearly. I pretended to prepare family photos or home videos. I asked everyone to sit in a semicircle facing the TV. Aunt Linda and Uncle Mike sat in the center. Seats of honor. The Netflix loading screen sound created tension. The living room lights were dimmed, creating a movie-watching atmosphere. Before we discuss any family business, I want to show everyone something. Because transparency is very important in family. Right, Aunt Linda? I looked straight into Aunt Linda's eyes, smiled gently but firmly. I've prepared a small presentation about our family communication over the past few years. Everyone thought I'd show family photos or memory videos. Actually, it was my evidence collection. The sound of the remote control clicking mixed with 15 people's nervous breathing in the closed room. The smell of peppermint tea I'd just brewed to stay calm. I held the remote, looked around the room. So, Aunt Linda, you mentioned you brought some papers for me to sign? Before I look at anything, I want to show everyone why I own this house. Aunt Linda's face started turning red when she realized this wasn't the meeting she'd planned. I'd turned the family meeting into family court, and I was judge, jury, and prosecutor. I clicked the remote. Slide 1 appeared, family communication, a timeline. The entire living room went silent, only the grandfather clock ticking. Let's start with 2021, when I announced I was buying Grandma's house. Evidence presentation. Round 1. Screenshot of the text thread. Hey everyone, I'm buying Grandma's house. Anyone want to chip in? 15 people. Seen, 0 replies. Interesting. No one wanted to contribute, but now everyone has opinions about ownership. The TV light reflected on my relatives' shocked faces. Someone nervously swallowed. Evidence presentation. Round 2. Voicemail from Aunt Linda. We'll see who really ends up with that house. crystal clear audio quality through the surround sound system. The whole room could hear the bar background noise and Linda's slurred voice. Aunt Linda, would you like to explain this voicemail from July? Evidence presentation, round 3, ring doorbell video. Aunt Linda trying the door handle, peering into windows. Clear timestamp, 2:47 p.m. Tuesday when I was teaching. This is called trespassing on my property that I own legally. Aunt Linda's face had turned pale. I stood up, facing the whole family. So let me ask everyone, what is family? Sharing joy or taking advantage? When I needed support buying this house, silence. When I succeed, suddenly it's family property? Grandma and Grandpa taught me that family supports each other, doesn't manipulate each other. I pulled out a stack of documents from the coffee table drawer. Aunt Linda, you brought transfer papers. Here are my papers. Mortgage documents, title deed, homeowner's insurance, all in my name only. Every payment, every repair, every utility bill, from my account. Now, about those papers you want me to sign, can you explain to everyone what they are? Aunt Linda stammered. Well, it's just for the family's good. Speak up, Aunt Linda, everyone is listening. Cousin Sarah, the neutral party. Wait, so you tried to make her sign over her house? Uncle Tom. Linda, that's not right. Momentum shifted as the family realized what really happened. Whispered conversations filled the room. The smell of coffee getting cold, tension replacing the earlier dinner warmth. Here's my decision. I'm keeping my house. I set my boundaries. Anyone who respects me and my ownership is welcome anytime. Anyone who tries to manipulate, threaten, or claim what's mine, the door is right there. I pointed directly at the front door. The room fell completely silent. Outside, Minneapolis snow was falling harder, but inside, you could hear a pin drop. 15 people waited to see if Aunt Linda would leave with dignity, or make this worse. Aunt Linda gathered her coat, whispering angrily to Uncle Mike. This isn't over, Ella. Family doesn't treat family like this. You're right, Aunt Linda. Family doesn't. That's exactly my point. They left my house in silence, not a word of goodbye. Unexpected support came. Cousin Sarah approached. Ella, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was doing this. Uncle Tom. Your grandparents would be proud. You handled this with class. 8 out of 15 relatives stayed, helping clean dishes and actually enjoying dessert. I gave Cousin Sarah a spare key. People who respect me get access. I changed the locks the next day and installed new security cameras. The smell of apple pie was finally enjoyed in peace, children's laughter playing board games. The Christmas tree lights twinkling, reflecting joy instead of tension. I sat in the head chair for the first time in my life. I pulled my own chair to this table. No one gets to push me away from it again. We created a new Thanksgiving tradition. Smaller group, genuine appreciation. Mrs. Peterson, my neighbor, joined us and became honorary family. Home isn't about blood relations. It's about mutual respect and love. That night, as I locked my front door, I realized I don't need permission to take up space in my own life. The house on Maple Street isn't just my property. It's my sanctuary. And I decide who gets to enter. The next morning, the smell of burnt butter still lingered in the kitchen, mixed with the stale bitterness of yesterday's coffee. I opened the window, and cold Minneapolis air rushed in, carrying the sharp scent of fresh snow. The house groaned under my feet. The hardwood creaking like it, too, was exhaling after the storm. I reached for my keys, turned them over in my hand. Cold metal, heavy, a reminder. Last night I had said, anyone who respects me is welcome. Anyone else, the door is right there. My phone buzzed with a new voicemail. It was my mother's voice, shaky and low. Ella, I didn't mean for things to go this far. I'm sorry for staying silent. A long pause, then a breath that sounded like a sob held back. I didn't know where to stand last night, but I know you weren't wrong. If you're ready, I'd like to come by. Just you and me. I replayed it twice. The static of her coat rustling, the tremble in her voice. It landed heavy in my chest. I set the phone down and brewed peppermint tea. The steam curled up, warm against my face, like a small embrace in an empty room. That afternoon, I drove to the hardware store. The shop smelled of machine oil and metal dust. The locksmith, Dan, wore a gray beanie and greeted me with a nod. "Congrats on the new house. Changing locks because," he asked, eyes kind. I smiled faintly. "For peace of mind." He lined shiny Schlage locks on the counter. "Schlage or Kwikset? Most folks around here go Schlage. Harder to jimmy open." I picked Schlage. The snap of the spring clicking into place was oddly satisfying. I wrote the date on the cardboard insert with a pencil. Lock change, 11/28. I taped it inside a kitchen cabinet. My own private receipt. On the way back, snow fell lightly, coating my windshield. At her driveway, Mrs. Peterson, my neighbor, was shoveling. She wore a red scarf, cheeks flushed from the cold. She waved. "Ella, I saw them leave last night. You okay?" I swallowed and nodded. "Because of you, I had what I needed." She squeezed my shoulder through her thick glove. "This house chose you. Keep it your way." Her words smelled like fresh snow, clean, bracing, undeniable. By noon, my cousin Sarah stopped by carrying a cardboard box. "This was Grandma's," she said softly. Inside were faded lavender sachets and a recipe card. Pumpkin pie, don't forget a pinch of salt. The ink wobbled but was legible, Grandma's handwriting unmistakable. I lifted the card to my face. Paper and dried ink smelled faintly of dust and time. Tears blurred my vision. "Thank you," I whispered. Sarah bit her lip. "I should have spoken up sooner. I let Aunt Linda control the room for too long. I'm sorry." Her apology landed like a heavy stone finally lifted. I tucked a lavender pouch into the drawer by the head chair. From now on, that chair wouldn't smell like entitlement. It would smell like Grandma. Gentle, steady, mine. Later, an email arrived from the HOA. "Welcome to the neighborhood, Ms. Hayes." The final line read, "If you experience trespassing or harassment, contact our office." I exhaled. I didn't want to escalate, but knowing I had the option was a quiet shield. Sometimes soft justice is knowing you don't have to swing the hammer unless you choose to. That night, Facebook lit up with a new post from Aunt Linda. A long rant, dripping with half-truths. Families shouldn't let one person decide everything. A relative shared it, captioned, "Sad for this family." Sarah screenshotted it and texted me. "Ignore it, I won't engage." I turned my phone face down. I promised myself. No fights in the comment section, only conversations on safe ground. Still, I opened Messenger and typed a single short note to Aunt Linda. "Aunt Linda, I made my boundaries clear. If you truly want to repair things, I'm open to a one-on-one talk. No papers, no demands." I hit send. I didn't wait for a reply. The next day, my doorbell rang. Ring notification. Motion detected. It was my mom. She stood outside with a paper bag in her hands. Snow dusted her hair. "I brought multigrain bread," she said when I opened the door. We sat in the kitchen. The kettle whistled softly, the smell of warm bread mixed with peppermint tea. Mom's eyes roamed the house. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Her gaze landed on a scratch on the table, where I once spilled watercolor paint as a kid. She sighed. "I miss Grandma, too." We sat in silence. Then I told her about the voicemail, the ring clip, the years of empty chairs. Her hand reached for mine, cold and trembling. "I let Linda take over too often. I thought keeping quiet kept peace. I see now it was just enabling." Her shoulders sagged. "I'll talk to her." I nodded. Boundaries weren't walls of punishment. They were road signs, showing people how to approach if they chose. That weekend, I did something small but huge. I wrote a house rule sheet on plain white paper, taped it inside the shoe cabinet. Black marker, shaky but firm. No mocking, no financial guilt tripping. No surprise house checks. Bring a dish or a story when you come. If conflict rises, we take 20 minutes apart. No winners, no losers. The cabinet smelled of cedar and faint shoe polish. The paper fluttered when I closed the door, like the house exhaling its agreement. On Sunday, I hosted Friendsgiving 2.0. Mrs. Peterson brought casserole. Sarah came with kale salad. A coworker carried a pumpkin loaf. The house filled with the warm smell of cinnamon, butter, roasted vegetables. On the table, I placed an empty chair next to the head seat. A small card rested on the plate. For anyone who needs a seat tonight. A neighbor's child pointed. Whose chair is that? I smiled. It's for whoever shows up at the right time. Laughter rippled around the table. The sound of forks clinking, board games shuffled in the living room. I poured hot apple cider, steam fogging my glasses. For once, fog didn't mean confusion. It meant comfort. Over dessert, Sarah shared her memory. When we were kids, Grandma's house had an unspoken rule. Whoever shouted loudest got the best seat. Last night I saw something else. Calm can win, too. I shook my head. I didn't win anything, I just kept my place. The pumpkin pie, Grandma's recipe, was sweet, not cloying. I'd added that pinch of salt. It tasted like balance. That night, I stepped onto the porch. Snowflakes fell in hushed choruses. Somewhere down the street, a shovel scraped against pavement. My phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Linda. Your mom talked to me. I won't come to your house again unless invited. A second bubble appeared. I need time. I typed back. So do I. Then turned off my phone. Sometimes justice isn't about pushing back. It's about knowing when to stop. Days later, a thank you letter arrived from my school. Thanks for taking on the extra reading class this semester. I smiled. In my classroom, I placed an extra chair by my desk. Called it the backup chair. Whenever a kid looked restless, I'd say, sit here, breathe. Maybe everyone needs a spare chair, a reminder they always have a place. The next weekend, Sarah and I cleared the attic. Dust, the sharp tang of old wood. We found a tin box filled with old keys. None matched current locks. I scrubbed them clean, framed them in a shadow box, hung it in the living room. I labeled it, Doors I've Outgrown. Guests asked, I explained. Some doors are closed. Some doors open only for the right people. They nodded, some smiling knowingly. Sunday night, I flipped Netflix on just for background noise. The bong sound of the loading screen reminded me of the moment I'd clicked the remote to present my receipts. I turned the TV off. Silence hummed louder, but it was comforting. The fire crackled in the fireplace. Wind whistled against the windows. Peppermint tea steamed in my mug. I pulled the head chair close to the window. Snow outside fell like a choir of white notes. A few days later, Mom texted a picture. A tablecloth she found in storage, patterned with faded oak leaves. Do you want it? Yes. She brought it over, smelling faintly of detergent. Her eyes watered as she asked, do you still leave an empty chair? I nodded. For anyone who shows up the right way, even you. Her lips trembled into a smile. I'll learn to show up the right way. That evening, when I locked the new Schlage deadbolt for the first time, the click was sharp and clean. I pressed my palm against the door, cool, smooth wood. I realized I wasn't waiting for someone to drag me inside. I wasn't screaming to stay. I was holding the key, to the house, to the story, to myself. And strangely, keeping the key made my heart's door open wider, to those who knock, who wait, who say please. Before bed, I stuck a post-it behind the door. Home is where you can say no without fear. My chair isn't for fighting. It's for sitting together. If you forget who you are, smell lavender. I chuckled. The clock ticked. The house felt freshly dusted, inside and out. Scrolling Facebook one last time, I noticed Aunt Linda's rant was gone. Maybe someone talked to her. Maybe she thought better of it. I didn't need to know. I posted a picture of my table set neatly, the empty chair beside me, keys resting on a candle plate, light glowing golden. Caption: Thank you for showing up at the right time. Little hearts and comments appeared, mostly friends, neighbors, coworkers, a few parents of my students. Sarah dropped a single chair emoji. I laughed out loud. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family who felt entitled to what you earned? Share your story in the comments. Sometimes the most important family is the one you choose.